Okay, we are live and ready when you are, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a work session of the Soldovia City Council, Monday, May 9th. Time is 4:33 p.m. We have one discussion topic on the agenda today, and that is the second draft review of the land use management plan, otherwise known as LUMP. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to staff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we had a previous work session in, I want to say April, maybe it was end of March. I meant to check, sorry. Pertaining to the LUMP, and then we've been kind of tied up with the budget. So this is our second time around with it. In that previous work session, it really was just me kind of reviewing the properties with the city council and going through the LUMP as a whole. We made it through Tidelands in the review, but we will not continue with that method. That didn't seem super effective to go through each property. So hopefully council has had the opportunity to go through the packet thoroughly and just view all 74 properties and write down any questions you have so that you can bring it to this meeting tonight. The main things that staff wanted to focus on is we have I provided a memo in the first following the agenda. I didn't put page numbers on the packet itself because the LUMP has page numbers, and I thought that would just be very confusing. So following the agenda, there is a memorandum, an updated memorandum written on April 26th, and it just discusses that, you know, some of the changes that were discussed at that first meeting have been incorporated. Really, this is more of a solidified draft, because most of the questions and things that were still left open in the air have been resolved. Really comes down to the recommendations in the packet, and then staff wanted the council to consider for FY23 land disposal the following properties, the first three being for designation for disposal by negotiated sale with the Kenai Peninsula Borough. And this came about at the last meeting that you guys had with the Kenai Peninsula Borough. There was a discussion on them potentially being interested in purchasing property from the city. So after evaluating what property the city had available, staff is recommending the consideration of the parcel across from the storage yard. That it's a corner piece, and this is going to be on page, if you want to look at the pieces individually, it's page 45 of the packet or 37 of the LUMP, and it's assessed at a value of $73,100. Then there's the old landfill site, which is outside of city limits, and that's on page 92 of the LUMP or 100 of the packet, and just beyond the storage yard. So I should have done it the opposite way. I apologize, but the storage yard, and then the very next parcel is the hill behind the school. And both of those are share common property lines with that Borough parcel that the school is on. So those were the recommendations to share with the Borough to see if there was interest in them purchasing any of those properties from the city. Additionally, there are several properties listed in this plan as potential status for disposal. I know that that's kind of our focus. At the last meeting, we had some public comment about wanting to preserve parks and trails and look at that, which has been added to the plan for a future consideration. But the direction I was kind of given or thought I was seeing from council is that you guys would like to see a sale, especially given the current state of the budget and deficit. So that's really the direction we're going tonight, but it can go any way you guys want. This is just the recommendation for which way we go. So the last recommendation for FY23 consideration of sale is a designation for disposal by sealed competitive bid. And this is a waterfront parcel. It's the parcel that's sitting between Sisbury and the industrial building. It's small. Most of that lot there, it's part of the industrial building. And this is on page 60 of the LUMP, 68 of the packet. So that was really the direction we wanted to drive it in. There's other parcels that you'll see on that overview page. I really like the overview page. I'm not sure if it's something that works for you guys, but that page 41 of the packet, 33 of the lump, kind of just lists all the properties and what their status is. And you'll see the ones highlighted or just the ones that for discussion tonight, or recommended for discussion tonight, but there are other ones listed for potential disposal in the future. And those would be great to talk about in the next couple of years, or tonight if somebody really desires. But they weren't brought up for recommendation because of the fact that they need additional work. Each one of them needs water, or they need sewer. There's something that they need before that they're developable. So I'll leave it at that and see where council wants to go with it.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. All right, I guess, and I missed the last work session for the lump, the first one, I guess. So I see there was quite a bit of discussion, a lot of work done. Did you have something else you wanted to add, or?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I saw the mic next to you and I thought you weren't on, but
Oh.
you are on. So you're good.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll just open it up to whoever wants to get started. Any thoughts on what's presented before us here? John?
Mayor Campbell, I have some questions mainly for, because I'm new. The old dump site that's outside of the city limits,
Correct.
how many acres?
Let's pull that page up. So that is going to be page
And-
100.
And I'm not really an opponent of just selling property right away. I think we need to definitely look at that, but I guess where I'm going is how many acres are involved in several of these parcels that are, in our proposal. And then, what's our risk for selling that dump site? Okay, if we sell it to the borough, of course, it's much less than it would be if it was sold for development, correct?
So those are great questions.
Also, would we be better off depending on the size of that, would we be better off to sell it off as parcels rather than a large piece with some type of conditional plan for the site as well?
And Mr. Mayor, if you want, I
Yep.
can address the first two
Yep,
questions
yep,
at least. So that parcel is 2.52 acres.
Okay,
And we did speak with the state about it. I sent out an email and asked about what the city's responsibilities were with this lot per its classification. And it looks like it is potentially classified a class 3 MSWLF. We'd probably have to have somebody to look at it just to verify that. But according to that, if you look on page 92, it says under future considerations that restriction from previous use, the notation on the deed or other instrument must notify in perpetuity any potential purchaser or leaseholder of the property
Right.
and it lists out those
right.
things from it being.
That's kind of what I was getting at, is
Yeah.
we want to make sure that our liability is
Right.
reduced before any sale. And then if it's 2.5 acres, can the city make out better if it's sold as half acre parcels rather than? That's just the question I have.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one.
No, I get it. I get it. But I think it's some of the considerations, and then phase 2, that's the same thing about, I have several questions, the same questions about phase 2 and then phase 3A and B, same thing. And if it's in the packet, I can look for that stuff as far as parcel sizes. But that was the same question I had for the other parcels, is how big they are and can they be divided, and can we benefit from that, And I know there was a couple of other pieces of property that were sold and they were sold with conditional sales and then we got them back. Right? So I guess where I'm going with this is it's really a good way for us to drive the future and what we're doing for Seldovia, and I just don't want us to miss those opportunities. That's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Thank you, John. Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, well, I think that we have 3 parcels that if the Kenai Peninsula Borough is interested in them, I think it would be a good, safe sale. One being that we can, as the borough mayor Pierce said, that we could buy it back. The old dump, I would be very concerned about what's there. I mean, I lived here when that dump was being used. And so I'm not sure if I got the classification that Heidi read out, the restrictions about hazardous material or any of the such. I would think they would be sold best if the borough bought it as is and full piece. The other pieces, I mean, we're looking at trying to help our budget a bit and to sell to the borough if they're interested at all in any of those three, because they are adjacent to their parcels already. It would be, I think, a convenient sale and a way that in the future, if we needed or wanted, we could get it back without any expense to the city at this point of upgrading parcels to get them ready to sell. I'm also, so those three items I would be interested in moving with. And then also the waterfront next to the old cannery, that piece, if that could get moved forward, that would be terrific. The rest of the items that we have and we've gone through, I think all take more work to get them prepared, not only work and planning, but expense. And so for right now, I would be pleased if we could, if the borough, contacting the borough and seeing if they're interested in any of those parcels. And then the lot down by the CISPRI building. And then, of course, the value-added processing or the value-added building, what we're going to do with that. And I'm glad to see that we, I think, are rethinking about Fish Creek, making that, not developing that, not selling that, but keep it in the city's hands for future reasons with which there's many. That's all I have right now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I agree with Vivian. I think just one comment I want to make, we're certainly not going to be selling anything unless we research like the old landfill site. We've got to research that and make sure that there's no nasties on there. You know, we can't be held liable for anything like that. So that would have to be explored before we sold it. And if it's a viable piece of property and it can be subdivided and we can afford it, which we probably can't, then I don't see anything wrong with selling it. The piece of property that I would kind of question is the waterfront parcel. I'm thinking maybe that would need some more discussion to see if maybe we can't do something with that. Again, do we have the money to go further with anything? I mean, I've had people tell me all kinds of things that could go on there, and some of them are good and some of them are not, I didn't think. But it could be beneficial for the city for income. But then how long would something like that take? Do we have the money to go forward with it? There's so many issues, that, yeah, it would take a while. But I think I agree with Vivian. If we can get rid of these to the borough and be able to buy them back later, I think that's a good short-term thing. And money for our coffers, because I'm sure we're not going to be doing anything with these pieces of property right now because we don't have the money to do that. So it's a catch-22. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
George, yep, go ahead.
when you talk about being able to buy the property back, would that be written into a contract? So we'd have that in black and white? Is that, and would there be a time limit on it? What would that look like?
Through the mayor, we would talk about that with the borough. Of course, we would get in touch with Mayor Pierce and the lands manager and the finance director and borough attorney and draft up those terms. So I can't say at this time what it would be, but because we talked about a first right of refusal, if there was a sale, we would want that spelled out in the deed or in the sale with the borough.
I would think that would be the way to go with the landfill site. That probably would be pretty safe bet. Not having it come back and bite us I wouldn't have any objection to doing the other one that way either, the waterfront property.
Thank you, George.
And Mayor, may I add
Yep.
something to that? So, the city clerk did get in touch with our attorney, the city attorney, and, he and his staff reviewed the sale before we even put it before council. Can the city even consider selling the landfill? So as long as we, put this notification that DEC requires associated with the deed on there. So it's recorded with the quick claim deed for the land sale. We would have fulfilled the requirements per the state of Alaska, and there wouldn't be anything else the city needs to do. So we already had the city attorney confirm that, yes, we can move forward with the disposal of the site. And these are the two things that you would need to do with the deed. Just record the notice from DEC.
One quick question.
Yep.
So that landfill was generated by the city as a dump rather than the borough in the past?
Say, repeat.
That landfill was generated by, as it was a city managed landfill in the past
Rather
rather
than a
than
borough
the,
landfill like the one
Yes.
we have now.
yes.
That I don't know. I don't know the history on that. Any idea, Heidi?
You know, I don't know the exact history on that. I just know that it went out of operation at the end of the 70s.
It was a city operated dump.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. That was one of
Would like to point out, if I may, real quick, that all of these properties that are in discussion, these 4 properties this evening for recommendation, are all listed as development disposal in the plan. So even if the plan is adopted, even if it's adopted by resolution with a recommendation for sale for these parcels, and the council decides in the future that they'd rather see them developed or something different, the developmental clause is already built into the status or the potential. If it wasn't, you could still change it, but it is there.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep. Go ahead, Harmony.
hey guys, I'm just gonna roll in here and be the thorn in your side about those lots over by our storage yard, those wetland lots that are by the Y there. I'd be interested, so I agree with what Vivian and Bobby were saying about pursuing the borough's offer for purchase of pieces like that to go in their land bank, as Mr. Pierce put it. But I would like to see the city pursue some sort of opportunity for a preservation there, a reservation for as a wetland. I know that's not something that the city itself could afford or operate, but I know that there are entities out there that do those types of things. And I think that that's something that could only be beneficial for our community long term. I know it's not a soapbox that you all stand on, but I know that would be support for that in our community and something that would be worth looking into. So that's my note on those pieces. As far as the landfill piece goes, I think everybody's kind of beat that one to death. And I agree. I do think that I think that if somebody wanted to purchase it to put buildings on, it'd be cool to see like a multi-family building go up on a piece like that, a small, like a small apartment building or something. I think that if provided that's allowed as part of the development of that type of property, I think that that's something that we should make available to somebody who wants to develop a piece like that.
Thank you, Harmony. Okay, anyone else? I'll just offer a couple comments. Yeah, no, I think, based on our conversations with the borough, and there's still no guarantee from the borough either. I mean, we'd have to make a presentation to them and see if they're interested, and then see, what their appetite was for purchasing, one or any or none of these. So I know they had expressed their willingness to certainly take a look at it though. So yeah, I'm definitely the parcels that we picked out, the 3 identified here. I don't have a problem with these 3, seeing if the borough, testing the waters and see if the borough would be interested in something like this. yeah, I think we already know what it takes to develop a piece of property and, we've got a piece that we've tried and we've not been successful with. Coming up with the money to finish it. We've talked about the RFP to see if, anybody else is interested in coming in and doing something with that piece of property and the value added building. So yeah, it takes a lot, obviously, to your, Bobby, to your points. It takes a lot of money, time and effort. We've been going a long time now for, I don't know how many years it's been now, 9-10 years on that value added lot building, and we haven't got real far on that. So I would definitely be in favor of doing something, whether it's competitive bid, but I would want, just like the other lots that we did prior. The whole point of that is to come up with something there. If it's a developer wanted to do, something there, that one that's industrial, right?
And
That
so
would-
it's the lot next to it. It's not the actual value added building lot. There's a small
Yeah, there's one
parcel in
there's one in
between.
between there.
Mhm.
But yeah, if there was something that someone could come up with to, get an increased tax base and get something actually happening, some sort of development down there on the waterfront, that's what I'd like to see for sure. So yeah, and then there's a number of other properties, obviously. I know we want to go, we've got a plan here, dive into it, and just, not go all crazy here, but test the waters here, see what we can do with it. And then slowly, I think every year we should revisit this and then decide, if where we're at, if we want to do something with individual lots on there and just keep making some annual progress with something on the, with some of the individual properties on the plan. So, yep, that's all I've got.
And Mayor, to add to that, the lots that don't necessarily have water or sewer to them yet,
Mhm.
that's something we talked about putting on the capital improvement program.
Right.
So that way we can explore grants or opportunities to extend infrastructure to those lots. So then they could be developed. And maybe that could be a great way to demonstrate a public-public partnership or a public-private partnership with a developer who wants to put housing in. So that's one of the ideas we had for those is.
Yeah, I think to Harmony's comments too, we've talked about that before, that, you can't lose if you go value added with residential housing. That's our number one problem in this community. We're never going to grow it if we don't get more housing. So if we have to go out and reach out to developers and say, hey, we've got a plan, we're not interested in making money off the sale of your building project. We want more people here. We want a bigger tax base. We want more property. So we can work, massage all the details out with that. But some of these developers in Anchorage and Kenai, Wasilla, they are paying a premium for the property. If a public-private partnership or something like that would seem extremely reasonable to go, and it would be, pay big returns for us in the long run. So, at least in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I was gonna say, we've been talking about that for years. That little thing about the housing has come up probably forever. I know since I was on planning and zoning and the council, the last 10 years, it pops up every once in a while, but then nothing ever comes of it. But
Well, yeah, we just got to get an RFP drafted and get going.
right. Yeah, so we're going in the right direction with this plan anyway, but Vivian,
Yes, yes.
yeah, do you remember, as far as the disposal and or leasing or selling, did we put the value added piece? What did we decide about that? Or did we? Is that just status quo right now? That piece of property with the value added plant on it?
Yeah, Heidi, I'll let you take that one, or Rachel.
I can take that one if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
So right now it's listed as developmental because of the fact that it was purchased with a grant or it was built with a grant.
Right,
So there
right.
are restrictions on
Yeah,
it with that.
I know
grant.
that, yeah. I was just wondering, I guess, where we are with that at this point. Is it just going to be continued being used for storage, or are we going to see if we can get somebody in there to try to develop it? I know we talked about it, but I don't think we ever directed you to do anything, did we?
I think our city,
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
well, I was just gonna say, I believe with that, with, when we were talking about it in our meeting with city clerk, that that is up for another discussion all of its own. And Rachel, I think you can probably address this, because I thought I just read in one of my packets how that we need to discuss that building and that lot and make a decision. It's one of those ongoing processes, though. We need to make a movement towards doing something with it officially instead of kind of putting it by the wayside. But Rachel, could you, I think you've got a little bit more on it than I got.
You bet. Through the mayor, council member Rojas and Sweat, it is listed for us to draft an RFP to
Okay.
get someone who has a commercial realtor background, who can find an industry or business that would be interested in being in that building. So they would be our representative. And I just have not had the chance to draft that RFP.
Oh, okay, okay.
But I even mentioned it in the manager's report for this meeting. We have 3 RFPs we're going to have to draft, and that is one of them.
And I do remember now something about that this was going to be a conversation all its own. Yeah, I remember that now. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, George.
we were just talking about developers and trying to find somebody interested and how much they had to pay for property. We have a developer right here next door that already owns the property and has expressed interest in working with the city to do what we're trying to have happen here. Some point, I think we need to look at that at least to study it, to determine whether or not we want to do it. The other thing, you kind of put an idea in my head just now when you said they're developers and larger outfits up in north of here that, you know, maybe maybe Hugh would be just as happy to bow out and sell the whole mess to someone who would be able to come down here hammer and tongs and do a development. That'd be a threat as well. But whatever, it seems to me time to get started with this.
Yep, agreed.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I think we've got a great document in front of us, and it's our blueprint of how we're going to move forward. And there's a lot of great ideas that we've got how to benefit Seldovia, but like everything, it takes time and effort to get it through. And I think we're doing a good job in that with our city manager laying out what our tasks are and our goals are with the council. And so I think we need to set, you know, a goal. If the lump is going to be a goal for this next year, if we decide to go ahead with possibly selling to the borough and then there's that other lot and move forward there, and then look at what we've got in our plan. And again, as our city clerk said, it's kind of it's a live document. So if we look at it and say, you know what, this lot we should put up for sale, or this lot, no, we should preserve it for such and such reasons, it's still a living document. And correct me if I'm wrong, Heidi. But so we've got this great document right now that's going to be our field guide to where we want to go. And I think it's really important. And we all know that having housing in Seldovia is crucial. If we could somehow network, if that becomes a priority with us, and we can network with somebody and have it laid out how this a piece of ground that the city has, and work that out, that could bring a multi-dwelling structure up, that would benefit Seldovia time over time again. I think we also need to keep in mind, as if we sell anything, that we have to have restrictions or these guidelines for it. So it actually does something for the city. There's a benefit other than putting it in someone else's hands and letting it sit. We want to put it in someone's hands and let it become something that's beneficial to the city. But I think we've got a great working document, and I'm very pleased with where we are right now. We're a game ahead than what we were last year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Yep, go ahead, Harmony.
So as per my original point about the multi-home dwelling or like an apartment complex, or so these lots here that are across from the borough maintenance yard are all over the standard city residential lot. So again, provided that, you know, if we worked on the assumption that the borough is not interested in purchasing all of these lots that we have available, that we would prefer go into the land bank. If we were to pursue selling these to, as you said, a developer, could we stipulate that these lots be used with the intention of putting residential pieces on them and allow for, you know, instead of our traditional one per lot in the city, because of how our most of our lots are the amount of acreage, maybe 3 lots or 3 dwellings could go on a 1 acre lot and up from there. Is that something that we're allowed to do when we make a sale? Make stipulations like that, where, you know, if you have a 10-year plan and this is what we'd like to see you do.
I guess in my mind, we'd have to look at every lot individually, right? If
Right.
it's-
Well, that's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, every lot, I agree. I mean, yeah, we definitely have to look at each lot individually and then take a look. I think, you know, the intention with the borough is if the borough decided to buy a couple of these, I don't think they would be doing a whole lot of development, you know, with
No,
their
right. So I guess my
lands.
question was like, my question was for if the borough didn't purchase and then we
Oh,
moved
right.
forward selling as a city, maybe we could incentivize a developer to develop industrial home or residential homes on a lot by saying, if you do this, we will help for the cost of hookup. Like we'll do the labor of hooking up your water and sewer if you put 3 homes on this 1 point whatever acreage this lot is here, you know. So we're trying to get somebody to develop these pieces with residents in mind, and we're helping that move forward. Is that something that we can actually do?
Yeah, absolutely we can. I mean, all of those are through standard contract negotiations. Yeah, it's just a matter if you can find a partner or find someone that's willing. You both have to agree, right? I mean, it has to be cost benefit for both parties, for the city and the developer. And, you know, some developers may have a lot of money, but no access to land, you know, that's,
Sure.
you know, reasonable. They want to build a structure and they're going to make their money on the structure. And maybe there's some other end to it, you know, maybe it turns out to be rental apartments. I don't know. There's any number of ideas out there. It could be townhouses, who knows? Yeah. And that may be where, you know, we have to look at, I know we're not allowed to do spot zoning, but we have to look at, you know, certain things of where every one of these are at, and then what a structure might look like, what a multifamily might look like. So yeah, I think once we get this process started, and if we were to get some interest out there, then you sit down at the negotiation table and you just hammer through, you know, what both parties are looking for and hope to accomplish, and then see if you can meet in the middle somewhere, far enough to get a contract signed and get something going. So, but yeah, everything, all those considerations in my mind would absolutely 100% be on the table and be in the city's best interest. So Heidi, you got something else you want to add to that?
Yes, I was just, you just reminded me, or I was thinking during this conversation that I should point out that page 8 of the lump is a future considerations and goals page. And a public-private partnership to foster affordable housing and economic development initiatives is included on there, as well as heavy equipment storage, dry storage for public works, water and sewer requirements and availability. But as I'm taking notes, I could see where preservation of wetlands could also be put under future considerations and goals, and that it looks like it really is already kind of meeting those needs. Other than that, so please definitely look at it, tell me what needs changed for goals or considerations, and if that is meeting what you guys are asking for. Oh, and sorry, I was going to also include that under a goal, we have update zoning code, rezone commercial district as commercial residential district, because those parcels next to the storage yard, that whole area was zoned as commercial, and other than the city's storage yard, we don't have any commercial entities in that area, and it's restricted to commercials. So maybe there would be more interest if the city was willing to open it up and broaden it, that there could be
Gotcha.
residential as well. So if you see more areas like that, certainly let me know, and we will incorporate it on this page, because as Vivian said, it's a roadmap going forward. So this lets us know we need to look at zoning change. We need to look at housing. We need to look at equipment storage. We need to look at preservation of wetlands and keep those on the forefront when we move forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Heidi. Okay, any other comments from anyone?
Mayor, may I?
Yep, go ahead.
So I was just curious in getting a temperature check from the council. Does this version of the lump that you see before you today, is this ready to go? Does council feel comfortable with a resolution adopting the lump? And it says it in the lump too, just because there's certain statuses like disposal doesn't mean the city has to move forward with that, but by us adopting the lump, it becomes now a living document approved by the council. And then say the borough does want to move forward, or we do want to try for a land sale this summer with that waterfront commercial lot. We have the council approval through this document, and then you would see separate legislation approving those sales. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying, does this look good for now? Is council comfortable for this for 2022? Or do you want more time to think it through? Is the first part of that question.
And if I may, I
Yep.
was actually going to lead on with if there's any other parcels that you guys want to discuss, now is a great time too, because I know you hopefully have all had a chance to look at it. And I, like I said, I wanted to make that change of the preservations of wetland. I will also Harmony or Councilmember Payton on page 47 of the lump are those lots that you were talking about by the storage yard. And I did incorporate language on the bottom that says boardwalk area for bird viewing and continued network of Susan Lake to outside beach. But I really liked your language of preservations of wetlands. So I would like to incorporate language like that. So when you guys are ready for it to come forward in the next draft or for adoption under resolution, I will make that change. I'll make the change on the future considerations goal page, and any other changes that you guys want to talk about now. I'd be happy to incorporate into the plan.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, I think, well, since I was part of working on this, I think it's just perfectly fine right now. I think to start small, like we're starting with those 3 pieces of property, I think is sufficient right now, because I just have a feeling if we engulf 6, 7, or 8 pieces of property, we're not going to get anywhere. So I think if we keep it small in the beginning and concentrate on that, because like we have said, if we direct you to contact the borough, see if they're interested. If they say no, well, then that scratches that. So then we have to go on to plan B. I'd like to just see us keep things tight and concentrate on 1 or 2 things. And then if that doesn't work, or it does, then go on to the next step. But anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Bobby. Did you have a follow-up, Heidi, or no? Okay.
No, just curious what you guys have to say, if there's any other parcels that you want to look at.
You ready? I think the plan's great. We got to start somewhere. It really is. But I'm not at all interested in selling the borough a waterfront piece of property. I don't think that's in the best interest of the city until we pursue our other avenues. That's all. The dump site, yeah, let them have it. But anything that we could potentially, I'm just not interested.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So the waterfront site would be open for competitive sealed bed, and in our code, it specifies that needs to be for an a new economic industry or development. So there would certainly be stipulations around that sale, especially in the
Right.
competitive sealed
And-
bid process that it would have to meet.
Right, and the reason I say that is because even in the example of the dump site, you know, if our liability could be mitigated, how do we know that somebody doesn't want to put a fourplex up there or 3 fourplexes up there that could be turned into affordable housing? We don't know until we've pursued that. I hate to see us lose that opportunity. We can certainly reach out to the borough and see what they're interested, but we don't have to move until we follow those other avenues. That's all I'm saying.
So then out of the three pieces that we were talking about.
Is the mayor's mic on?
Yep.
Okay.
So then, John, are you talking one of the three pieces that we were talking about? Or are you talking specifically the small piece of the water? Well, two of them.
I mentioned there is a small piece of the waterfront, just because of the sheer fact that it's on the waterfront. It has potential for all kinds of things for the city. Okay. But the other one I'm referring to was the dump site. You know, those other 3 parcels that are wetlands.
I think you're off on which lots you're talking about.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering. Okay.
The three that we're talking about for the borough is that hill behind the school ball field. Up on top of there, that's one of them. And then, which is off of Vista. And then the other lot that we're talking about is kind of as you're going out Jackaloff, and before you get to Shoreline, there's land on your left that belongs to Borough already and the city. There's a lot there. And then the other lot that we're talking about is the old dump going out Jackaloff. So
Okay,
those,
well, yeah,
different ones.
I did read that, and I thank you but it's the same thing, the stuff up behind the school on the hill, I haven't actually been up there. Okay, but my concerns with that is, you know, it's one lot, it's 2.5 acres. Is that what you stated about? Same thing. I mean, those could be potential lots for home development. I just don't see where we benefit other than immediate cash from the borough.
There's a lot that Mr. Mayor, may I comment? Sorry, there's a lot to consider for that lot behind the ball field. It's, first of all, it's really steep. The access to it, I don't believe that there's I think that the Vista view probably is the primary access, and it would have to be extended. So that's an upfront cost for the city that would have to go towards developing that lot. And then it would require, I think this is one of the ones that is going to need utilities run to it before we're able to run to that property. So the upfront cost of selling that property as a developmental lot to the city exceeds what the city could sell it as an undeveloped property, which is why it's presented here for the Borough Bank sale, John. I think everybody agrees with your line of thought, but the consideration here is the upfront cost to the city versus the long-term benefit of offloading it at such a cheap cost for an undeveloped property. Does that make sense?
I get it clearly. I just don't think it's a good plan. Sorry, I respectfully disagree.
So the only one you're in favor of here is the old Soldovia landfill site. Okay. Bobby, did you have some?
Well, I mean, I think we ought to go with all 3 of those, or then go with none of them and reevaluate everything again. And how long is that going to take? And how long before we make another decision? I mean, this land's been sitting there behind the school for like ever, you know, and it's not. I think it's a good deal with the borough as long as we can get them back. And if the time comes where we can afford to, you know, do something with these pieces of property, then I think it's a pretty good short-term thing for us and a long-term thing for us.
Yeah, the other piece of this too is if we're dealing with the borough, I mean, it may be that the borough has got the same thing. A raw piece of land does us nothing. I mean, it's worthless. So unless there's some strategic value to it that, that we're all missing here. I mean, maybe the borough would have access to, and they've done their lands, they have a department, right? So they've got people and staff that do nothing but deal with lands, acquisition, disposal, development. That's what they do. So if they own their lands, and we, as part of the negotiated sale with them was if you guys have access or you have better ideas or some way that this would lead to development by the borough working with somebody, I mean, these are bigger entities that have staff, time, money. In the end, it's all going to benefit Soldovia, right?
I'm not opposed at all to
I-
seeing what the borough has to say. Not at all. I mean, let's visit it after we see what they say.
Okay. George?
Mr. Mayor, if I could be so bold as to clarify my colleague's position, I don't think he's saying he's opposed to selling those lots. He just wants to make sure that when we do decide to do that, we've dotted all our i's and crossed all our t's, and we know we're making the best deal possible.
Yeah. And
I think we're all saying the same thing.
Yep. And I think the part of that process would be if we agree to go this route, direct the manager to approach the borough, see if they're interested in in some sort of negotiated sale with these 3 lots. And then if the answer is yes, we're interested, then the contract negotiations begin. I mean, they're not just going to say, sure, we'll hand you the cash, give us the land. They're going to want to know, they're just like us, they're going to want to see a contract and see what our stipulations are. And they're going to have stipulations, I'm sure. So it's a two-way street.
And that being said, I see the value in the RFP for the value added building ASAP. And I know our poor city manager's got plenty on her plate. You know what I mean? I get that. But I see that value of let's move forward. I had a customer in my restaurant last summer that mentioned a piece of property here in town and maybe some type of apartment complex was interested in it, but it's not even on this, in the discussion tonight. So.
Okay.
If they were interested, did they contact the city?
Okay.
So Mayor, I'm
Yep.
hearing that, the city clerk, she's going to add a couple more things into the lump, but that there is general support of adopting it as is with those additions at a meeting, hopefully in May, one of our 2 other meetings we have scheduled for May. And then we'll see what the borough has to say. I actually already proactively contacted their office to get the conversation going with the lands manager and the finance director to see how they feel about what Mayor Pierce said. So I can let council know as soon as I hear back about that. And then if there is support, great, then we've adopted the lump. The borough's interested, then we could do contract negotiations. And then in regards to that waterfront lot, that would not be just a direct sale to the borough. That would be sealed competitive bid open to the public. And so that's the other piece of land we're curious about selling this year for this summer. And if council was supportive of that, I would like to, I know we're curious what the borough has to say, but if council is interested or supportive of selling that waterfront lot, I would like to get moving on that quickly for the summer to see if we can do a sealed competitive bid and find somebody that's here in Soldovia that would be interested in that. But that's just my recommendation while land is on the mind and it's sunny out. But we can always defer to making that happen in December or January of this year. Just if council is supportive of disposing of that lot, that would be a great thing to expedite for the season.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep. Go ahead.
I just have a question about that waterfront lot. So the way it's zoned, does it restrict the is the development geared towards like marine development, like marine like a boat haul out or something like that?
City clerk?
Yes, if if I may, Mr. Mayor, it is zoned as industry. So industrial, it is, does have restrictions on it and we can pull those up.
Yeah, I'm trying to view
Sorry.
your pages, but my computer is frozen, so I couldn't just look it up, but.
It's a lot, I understand. So it is on page 52 for those who can view are just shows some of the purposes for the industrial lot. So for instance, not permitted are mobile homes, mobile parks, motel, hotel, lodge, restaurant. Conditional uses are dwellings containing 4 or less. So single family residence, a duplex, a triplex would all require a conditional use. Or a fourplex, anything with 5 or more units also would require a conditional use, but it's a different category. Nightly rentals, bed, breakfast, hostels, gas stations, churches, clinics, marijuana cultivation, fraternal organizations, schools, and hospitals are all conditional uses. And then you'll see under permitted uses, it's pretty much geared towards anything commercial, manufacture. There is marine equipment sales, automotive repair sales, junkyard, lumberyard. You may not want those things in that area of town. Commercial recreation, business consumer services, business personal services. So it is a business centered lot or industrial centered lot. And our code, as said before, does specify under that competitive bid process that the city will consider the sale for a beneficial new industry or economic development. So those words could also be incorporated in with the RFP.
It is kind of interesting that after all these discussions and the zoning and stuff, that junkyard actually still made it through in the industrial, because I would be 100% mortified if
Me
that
too.
were sold and turned into a
Me
junkyard.
too.
So we have enough junkyards around and we don't need another. So I'll just leave it at that.
I was able to load this page and I do like the permitted uses, aside from the aforementioned. I think that that area down there, it would be really cool to see the value added building be sold and be turned into some sort of industry for the community. And then moving forward with, if you guys do end up moving out of that big building, that could, go right in with that. And you already have the gas station and you have the boat haul out there. I'd really like to see some sort of economic opportunity for our community down there. I think that the hotel does its job. I think that there's a lot of B&Bs already in the community. I would be really sad to see the city get rid of a waterfront lot and have it turned into another huge building that sits empty for most of the year, and isn't really doing anything for the community year round. Whereas if we were able to sell it to somebody who wants to, have a covered boat shop for the people over there in dry storage or something like that, that would be really cool. I'd really like to see us pursue those types of opportunities for our community.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is whatever the use ends up being, it's going to have to be something that's cost effective, or there's a cost benefit to whoever buys it and wants to develop it. So they need to be able, if they're going to buy it and do that and willing to spend money, then they're going to want to be able to make money, obviously, if that's what they're going to do. So how would you, if the council gave approval to move forward with that waterfront piece, then if it was going out to competitive sealed bid, you would have to have, I guess, most of the stipulations up front spelled out, and then there would have to be a clause about, it would still have to be a final contract negotiation as a part of that. So
Yeah, Mayor, it would be an RFP for sealed competitive bid or sealed competitive bid sale. We would have a draft contract attached to that so people could see if they do win the lot, this is what they're agreeing to. It would be reviewed by the city attorney. It would be appraised for fair market value so that the minimum bid price is fair market value. And more. So that's why if council's interested, it's gonna take
It's going
time.
to take some time to develop
Mhm.
the documents just to get it out for bid. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question about this, the RFP, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, in that same train of thought, so within this RFP, is that where we would say that we stipulate within 2, 3, some set amount of years that their business plan is put into effect? That's what I'd like to see, somehow the wording that we're not just selling this piece of property, we either receive a business plan or we know that in 3 years, 2 years, whatever amount of years we decide, that they will have their business going. Is that something that can be written up in this original RFP?
I believe, I mean, I think that was the intent, is based on the previous lots that were sold. Rachel, you can correct me if
Good.
I'm wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be okay. Adding more conditions limits to who wants to buy the lot.
Sure.
So council will have to weigh that as well if we're hoping for a land sale this year. But in talking with the city attorney, we can determine what's okay.
At
in
least
that
have
same-
some sort of intent language in there, and
Yeah.
then,
Right.
as part of the final, negotiated contract, then that, you got to make sure it's right for both parties. But yeah, I think, Vivian, the answer to your question is generally, yes, we want to see somehow we want to be able to make sure that it's just not going to sit empty for, in perpetuity.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Final thoughts, comments? Heidi? Yep.
If there aren't any final thoughts or comments from the council pertaining to the lump overall, I do just want to draw your attention to something real quick that we don't have to spend much time or discussion on this evening because it's going to come up in the future. But it is part of the lump, and that it's been mentioned recently, and I had it come up in a discussion pertaining to the 4th of July about vending. And I know we've kind of gone back and forth over the last couple of years of that lot between the Harbor Master and Lollipop Park. It should still be designated as vending. I did speak with one council member who suggested that perhaps the row beside the pavilion should be vending instead, and then be a centralized business area. I wanted to bring forth to council at a future meeting, hopefully the next future meeting, a discussion just on the ordinances surrounding vending. There's not a lot of language in there. So my recommendation was going to be, if council still wants to pursue having the opportunity for people to vend on a city property, and it's up to you guys whether that's something you're interested in or not. Regardless of the location, I was gonna recommend that some parameters be put in place, such as that the vendors are paying for a 10 by 10 space. That's what, they're limited to a 10 by 10 space, which is the size of a pop-up canopy. That there's a 90-day summer season limit. So you start in May or you start in September, somewhere between May and September, you get 90 days, that's it. Right now, our code specifies that vending is $100 for a vending application. That's it. $100 if you're going to do one day, $100 if you're going to do a season. So it's just something that we need to address because that's what's in our code and it's not applicable. And like I said, you guys don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but it's something to think about for the next conversation. At least is this something that the council still wants to offer as a space for the public to vend on public property? And is that space still applicable, or does it need to move?
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Let's see, it's 5:35. Let's go to the public here and see if anyone from the public wishes to comment on land use management plan.
I'm not seeing any comment or any hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so coming back to council then, so we've got a couple things. We've got the 3 pieces. We've talked about that, to go to the borough, to see if they are interested in a negotiated sale. And then obviously if the answer was yes, then we'd have some work to do to address all the stipulations. And then, discussion about the RFP on the waterfront parcel to see if we want to get that going as well, to see if that'll generate any interest. So did we have any, outright objections to getting that process started and then seeing where that takes us? Or generally I'm hearing consensus as long as all of our concerns are addressed somewhere in the process here. Okay. All right. And then in terms of the overall starting point for the land use management plan, I same thing. I think that it's a pretty good document. It's pretty overall inclusive. And then, just going forward, we treat it as a living document. And if anyone wants to see changes, or, if we set up an annual or semi-annual review, or at least as an agenda item, if someone wants to bring something up and talk about a specific lot or something, so that, or anytime if something comes up and, someone approaches you guys and wants to talk about a lot or something like that, we can always get it on the agenda item, but at least now we have a document, a controlling document to work off of. So which should be good. Bob,
Yeah,
you had a
Mr.
comment?
Mayor. Yeah, on that note, I think it's important now that we've got this land management plan that we use it and review it, not forget it for the next 10 years. So I think that would be great. Maybe every 6 months, or, if things are hopping, here in Saldovia, it might be good to just take a look at it and get everybody's opinion. Hey, is there anything we need to do or want to sell or whatever?
Yeah, at least an annual update. At the very minimum.
At
so-
least annual, yeah, for sure. And then maybe, if something comes up, I guess it could be reviewed every in 6 months or whenever it needs to be.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep, go ahead.
really quick before we adjourn, I was just wondering what the status of the Mermaid Park conversation is.
Any updates on that?
Through the mayor, council member Peyton, we've been working with the city attorney to follow up from the council meeting. We now have a planning commission that can meet, and they are quorum for discussion purposes at least. And so once we put together and synthesize feedback from the attorney, we're going to reach out to Mr. Blodgett and see if he would be available for a meeting with the planning commission now that we have one in place to go over answers to questions that were posed at that meeting, as well as the applicant's proposal, which hasn't been formally accepted yet because there were still some materials that we considered incomplete. So once we have a complete application, then we would send a notice out that there was a variance application and go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Harmony, for that question. All right, well, do we have any other closing comments before we adjourn on the land use management plan? Do you guys got everything you need to get started? Okay, good. All right, if there's no additional comments, questions, then we'll go ahead and adjourn. Time's 5:36, and we'll get ready for our 6 o'clock regular council meeting. Okay, we're adjourned.
See you in a bit.